what really determines the cost of a building?
Yeah, thank you so much. You said a lot.
Mm,
People are a point surveyor.
mm,
I work with a construction company here in Lagos as well. Talking about the factors that determines the price of building, there are a lot of factors that determines the price of building. But let's take it from the perspective of construction. Hmm? Let's
mm,
let's
mm.
let's decide it to say what determines the cost of construction. I don't know if you get my point.
Yeah.
Before diving into it, you probably might have some audience who really don't know how the system works, how the process is. You said in your conversation that some of your clients, some people that have the intent to build, they have intent to invest. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you.
Yeah. Some people that have interest in either investing or building for their own self, providing shelter for themselves, they've actually
Mm,
approached asking what is the cost without even having the concept design. I don't know if you get my point. There are a lot of people like that,
yeah.
and I won't castigate them for asking such a question. They're just being inquisitive. What is actually important is for everybody who is online to understand that there are numerous professionals, with professional boundaries that can be of help, to every individual that has the intention to either build for themselves or build or invest in the real estate sector. Drawings are produced by architects. Once you have an architect close to you, or you need someone that can help you to modify what you have in mind to build, engage with an architect. Once an architect hear your brief, they will come up with design. There are different kind of designs. Someone can decide to build a duplex of about say 400 square meters. Somebody else might want to build a duplex that is about 1,000 or 800 square meter. And in
Mm,
that kind of concept, an average person might think, my friend built a duplex for this price, I should also build a duplex
mm,
for that. It can't, for the
mm,
same
mm.
person. We all know that, we professional knows that it can't work like that. I don't know if you get my point. So there are several factors
Yes.
that determine the cost of construction. Like I said, once the architects are done with their design concept, before the architect, I know that the client must have contacted or engaged the service of the land surveyors who would have given them a survey, to measure out the size of the land, and the architect design to fit into the size of the land. Once the design to fit into the size of the land, you can also engage a structural engineer who come up with structural design, and there are other engineers who are involved in mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design. So all these designs are very important, for professionals to coordinate. Once every professional coordinate their drawing and the intent, they share those drawing details with the quantity surveyors who determines the cost estimate for the construction.
Mm,
That's
mm,
just like layman explanation of the chain, of that conversation. But one thing that is actually very important that everyone must know in our environment is, once you have an intent to build, or you want to invest in, let's take it from the perspective of building for your own self or building
mm,
for some other people. It's actually very important that once all your professionals have coordinated your drawing, you must
mm.
take that drawing to the Ministry of Physical Planning, especially in Lagos State, for approval. They have to do assessment, check the ventilation, air circulation, they check the setback. They also make their own input to make your building fit for habitation, and to ensure that you are going to work according to the standard that the government has stated in the document that guides construction works in our environment. So,
Mm.
thinking about the cost. I don't want to talk only about the cost of the construction, because there are some other
Mm.
costs that also contribute to the cost of construction. The
Yeah,
cost, the cost that you pay professionals in helping you design comes with a
part of
cost.
it.
The cost that government, when you're doing assessment, government will calculate the volume. They have their rate. They have different rate for different region. Same thing is almost applicable at every value chain.
Mm,
Surveyors, there are land surveyors, in Nigeria, sorry, Lagos, let me use Lagos as an example.
mm,
Different community has different pricing. The cost of doing your survey in Lekki is not the same of cost of doing survey in Pogba. It's not the
mm,
same of a survey in Abuleba.
mm,
I don't know if you get my point. So looking at it from
mm.
that perspective, looking at it from that looking at it from that perspective, there is a variance in cost already. So you don't just assume that what I'm building in Lekki, I will do the same thing in Ogba. I don't know if you
Mm.
get my point. Just talk
Mhm.
about the basic factors. Then when it comes to approval, government assessment of your drawing to give you authorizations to commence your work on your site, that cost to also varies. The kind of assessment someone in Ogba or Abule Egba will get from the government for building is not the same as the cost in Lekki or Ikoyi. I don't know if you get my point. So That aspect, we need to have it at the back of our mind that there are different costs allocated for that. So back to what I was saying. Once all your professionals, your drawings, you're taking your drawing for approval, government has approved. The quantity surveyors, who is the best to do this for you, you need to get a quantity surveyors to do the cost estimation for you, will probably help you to calculate. They will measure out every aspect of the construction work, and they will have done their market survey, assign cost, and multiply the cost by the quantity for them to come up with an estimate that will guide your building process. But if you miss that at the beginning, it's very possible that your project might not meet up your required financial targets. So apart from poor planning or not engaging the right professionals, you can get things wrong. We've had scenarios. I read of one particular trending thing last week about Lekki Pan City. It literally done that project without getting the right professionals involved. I think I missed something the other time. I missed something the other thing in my previous conversation. I regard the engagement of the geotechnical engineer.
Yeah, who does the soil test?
A lot of people don't know that there is need for them to do soil test so that they can understand the bearing capacity of the land that they bought. We've had scenarios where some people are building in Bagada. Everybody believes that Bagada is part of mainland. It is not on the highland. But there are some parts in Bagada that they are waterlogged area. The soil bearing capacity is very, very poor. I don't know if they are done with the market data as mainland, I can build without getting the right professionals, without getting the geotechnical engineer involved. You can miss out. A case of Pan City in Lekki, where I think maybe it's possible they might have engaged some quack, in getting things done for them. It's an assumption, but what we saw is something that shouldn't have happened in a mega city like
It's avoidable. It's avoidable.
Yeah, it's avoidable. It's something that shouldn't have happened because we can't see billions of dollars in investment going down the drain. Look at the way the building are just falling out. It is so pathetic, and I think that's one of the reasons why you've come up with this, so that our listeners can know that they have to do things right. I know your organization, you're doing what is right, you're following the right process, and God has been helping.